Starting a poultry farm or chicken farm in this instance can be quite complex, quite confusing, and you have a lot of information to gather. But you have done really well. By the time you've come to this point, you have decided that you want to do layers. That's chicken for eggs, but you still have a single decision to make. Should you go for day-old birds, that's baby chicks, or the point-of-lay birds? Those are the birds that are just about to lay. Well, in today's video, I'm going to give you all the cons and the pros of each of the side, and I assure you by the end of today's video you'll have made up your mind on what you're going to be going for. So please stick around. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Dr. Daniel, a very passionate poultry farmer, and if you're very interested in farming, poultry farming or other kinds of farming, especially animals, then you're in the right place. Please consider subscribing to the channel, hit the notification bell, that way you never miss out on an upload. And don't forget to smash the like button. Day-old birds or point-of-lay birds? Starting out with the capital, which is usually the most critical thing for most people while starting out. How much money do you have and how much are you willing to spend? Let me explain to you the two sides. If you're going to be doing day-old birds, you need to have a bit more capital and think about the long term, because you're going to go 4 or 5 months, in fact up to 6 months, before you actually start getting back money that's substantial enough for the farm to start sustaining itself. So you're going to have to go through the brooding and all the costs of the brooding, the vaccination, and the feeds. Guys, the feeds. You're going to have to go through all that in order for you to start making money. Unlike the person who is getting point-of-lay birds, that person will get the birds and probably next week the birds start laying. So while the investment for buying the birds itself might be quite expensive for the point-of-lay birds, that person is going to start making money back in a week's time or something. But then the other thing that you should think about if you're going for point-of-lay birds is that at the time of point-of-lay, the birds usually consume quite an amount of feeds. It's not as cheap as you might think. They consume usually around 85 grams per bird per day, between 80 and 85 grams per bird per day at the point of laying. So it's quite some money that you'll be spending. But then generally comparing for the two of them, the point-of-lay birds, you invest less in terms of capital. Number two, your level of experience. Now guys, if you have completely no experience, totally no experience, of course the easier option to go for is the point-of-lay birds, because you'll have skipped all the brooding and you'll have skipped most of the vaccination, yeah? Because you need to know how to vaccinate the birds. You'll probably get in a vet or someone to assist you, someone who has the experience to assist you in vaccinating the birds. If you don't know how to do it, that's if you're getting the day-old birds. You'll need to know how to do the brooding and everything that's related for brooding if you have the experience. If you don't have the experience, I don't know, it might be quite hard for you, and some people usually choose the easy way out. So if you're going to choose the easy way out, then you go for the point-of-lay birds, because those you'll just get. You're not going to do any brooding. They're adult birds. You're not going to do any vaccinations. Well, you'll have some vaccinations to do, but not a lot of vaccination. So it's an easier option. Point number three, what is your goal? Do you want to master the cycle and the process of poultry farming, or do you want quick and easy profits? Now you need to think about this in both the short term and the long term. If your goal is to go into the market and compete favorably as a poultry farmer, then you should get the experience. It's very, very important that you get the experience, because in the long run, doing day-old birds is cheaper. Yeah, as I'm going to talk about, in the other points. But in the long run, it's cheaper. And when you have everything controlled by yourself, you're going to get more money. So I believe when you're starting out, despite the fact that you'll be drawn at the prospect of making money, I think the easier and more reasonable option is to go for day-old birds, because it gives you the experience and mastering of the cycle. Yeah, you get to make mistakes. You get to learn a lot of things. There's a lot of information that you're going to have to look for by coming to a channel like mine. By the way, I leave a link here to a playlist with almost all of my videos about poultry farming, so just click on it. But then if your goal is to make profits, quick profit, you probably have something that you're planning on doing in the near future and you just want money, quick money getting back. Or if you're not brave enough, you're fearing taking the risks, which is actually okay. You don't think it's safe enough for you, then go for the point of lay birds, you'll again get some experience, gain some experience. By the time the cycle is done, you'll probably be brave enough to carry on with a different kind of birds, probably the day-old chicks. Number 4, availability of a brooding pen and other resources. Now this is really, really critical, because you might be starting off and you don't have a place and the materials needed to do brooding. I know in some countries this information is so scarce and these materials are so scarce. I know it's possible to improvise, but for some people don't want to improvise. Some people just don't know how to improvise, because brooding needs some specific tools. You're going to have to do the heating for the birds. Quite tiresome, guys. Yeah, if you don't have the right equipment, if you're not going to be using electricity and the bulbs that can do brooding, then you're going to have to use things like charcoal or some kind of coal or briquettes or something like that. And that's time consuming, and it can be really, really, really stressful when you're looking at the birds and you get a few birds dying and you don't know what to do. Guys, you can get confused. So brooding is quite complicated. You're going to have to know how much feed to give the birds. When the birds have grown up, the feeding is almost constant. Well, they increase by just a little bit. Like I've told you, at point of lay, they'll be eating between 80 and 85 grams per bird per day. But while you're brooding, every day you're giving the birds a different amount of feed. They'll start wasting it, pouring it on the ground. So if you don't know how to deal with them, my God, you're going to get messed up. Your head is going to run crazy. So if you don't have any of those things around and you don't think you're willing to go in and be brave, then I would suggest you go for the point of lay birds. But if you have this equipment, you think you can improvise, guys, I've made lots of videos about improvising. For example, brooding. I'll leave a link to a video right here about brooding and everything. And most of the things are improvised because I have been improvising on my farm. That way you can get to master the whole thing of brooding, improvise, and then you'll probably go with the day-old bird. Then point number 5, which is actually, to me, I believe the most important, the vaccination history and the age of the birds. So guys, when you're getting day-old birds, you're getting them as day-old birds. They have just been hatched and they are on your farm, day-old birds. Everything is in your hands. Everything is in your control. If they get sick, you are responsible. If they start producing well, you are responsible. When you get point of lay birds, guys, you can't be sure exactly how old they are. Yeah, someone will come and tell you they are 14 weeks when they're actually 16 weeks. Well, that's unlikely. Someone will come and tell you they're 18 weeks when they're actually 15 weeks. And so you think you have them starting to lay in the next week, when unfortunately they'll start laying in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then, you're all confused and you're in a loss. All the other things, sometimes people sell birds that have actually started laying. And the birds have been laying for a week or 2 weeks. And someone comes and tells you, oh, these birds of mine have been laying for a month. I just got into a problem. Now I need to sell them and this kind of stuff. And you buy them when the birds have actually been laying for 40 weeks, 45 weeks. And then you get them, you have them laying for a few months and they are done. And then the whole age of the birds was confused. Or someone could come and sell to you birds and they are telling you they have been vaccinated. They have been vaccinated against everything, when they actually haven't been vaccinating the birds. So the birds start getting sick and getting ill, and then you are to pay for those problems. So the problem of getting point of lay birds is that you have no control about what happened in the past of those birds. You're not sure how the birds have been vaccinated. You're not sure exactly how old the birds are. And you're even not sure how the birds have been fed. Guys, I've told you that how birds are fed is really, really important. Because if the birds are not fed on a particular percentage of protein within a particular time period, let's say 10 to 16 weeks, then you'll have the birds starting to lay, but they probably won't lay for as long, or they won't lay as frequently, or the eggs will really be small, because it's important in the development of the reproductive system of the birds. So it's really, really critical that you know how the birds were fed. But guys, besides all this history, the capital and everything, the most important thing when you're choosing between day-old birds and point of lay birds is actually where you get the birds from. Guys, the most important thing about chickens, whether it's layers or broilers, is the quality of the birds. I've talked about this before on the channel and I'll keep emphasizing it. The quality is the most important, because you could get day-old birds and you get them from a terrible source. And the parents were probably young parents. So if you get birds from sick parents, the kids are also going to be sickly. The chicks are going to be sickly. They'll grow up and become hens and they will be sickly. So the most important thing is to get from a trusted supplier. Guys, always get your birds from a trusted supplier, whether it is day-old birds or point of lay birds. That is really, really important. But if I were to choose, what do you think I would choose? Come on, take a second and guess. Well, I started a poultry farm just over 2 years ago, and I didn't have any information. I had never started poultry farming. I had never had a poultry farm, and I went for day-old birds. If I were to give you advice, I would tell you to take day-old birds, because that way you have better control over everything. Yeah, I know the capital might not be there, but just plan ahead of time. So if you are thinking, you don't have the money right now, give yourself probably a month or 2 more months to prepare yourself, get a little bit more money, because in the end, the financial consequences of getting point-of-lay birds might outweigh the financial gain that you will have gotten from purchasing the birds. I know point-of-lay birds can become quite cheap, because sometimes someone sells them because they are desperate. You start your poultry farm, you thought you had the money, the prices of the feeds change, or you probably didn't do proper planning, and then the birds reach a particular point. They're probably 3.5 months. They're just left with a month to start laying, but someone runs broke, because at that point the birds consume a lot of food, and someone runs broke. They can't buy the feeds, so they are selling them off, and they are desperate for a buyer. You can buy them for really, really, really cheap. The problem though is that you can't trust how that person raised the birds. So I would advise you to go for day-old birds. Go through the process. In the end, if you want to become a huge commercial farmer, you need to master the process. Guys, don't think short term. Think as long term as possible. So yeah, that was it. I believe I have helped you make a decision. I hope you'll make a decision that will be helpful for you, and it will take you as far in front as possible. Lots of love. Thanks for watching. See you in the next upload. Bye-bye.